Well, we're talking commercial beds today. If you're looking to upfit your truck, but you're not too sure what you need or what it is that you want or what fits exactly for your requirements, you're going to want to watch this video. Behind me, I've got 4 examples of upfitting options, from your standard flatbed to a more upgraded flatbed to the middle ground service bed and all the way up to the big boy crane truck. Stick with me, let's check this out because this is going to be a fun one. I'm Bobby J. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're talking about commercial beds. What's right for you? I'm going to give you some information from a basic flatbed all the way up to a full-on crane bed. Some information on what it's actually like using these, the pros and the cons, using these, everything in between on a daily basis. I've put extensive time on all 4 of these trucks, and I would like to have the chance to give you the feedback of what each application is really good for in a real world application, not from a guy that is dedicated, not from the cat guy that runs his, Peterbilt full-on crane rig, or just the rancher that's got himself a hay flatbed. I have been fortunate enough to be able to put quite a bit of time on all these, and I can really kind of give you some ins and outs. So let's get into it. The first one we're going to do is we're going to do your basic 3/4 ton single wheel pickup with a basic flatbed on it. You see tons of guys have it. It's, probably maybe almost the most common setup. Let's look at it. Your basic flatbed is, the pros to it is you can load pallets. It's a lot easier to load pallets, equipment, that sort of thing. Pickup beds, if you're using them heavy and hard, you're going to bang up the bed rails. You're going to bang them up at tailgates. Tailgates take a punishment. A flatbed is tough, right? You can throw anything you want. You can haul quite a bit more weight, I want to say, on a flatbed, assuming that your truck suspension can handle it. You can haul quite a bit more weight because you have more room. An 8-foot long bed, flatbed versus a pickup bed, you just have more surface area to load pallets and whatnot on. Now, one of the drawbacks is you've got to pretty much tie down everything. That's probably one of the biggest drawbacks. Something like being able to just throw something in the back of your pickup bed and go. But if you're looking for a commercial bed, moving into, this is kind of the entry level or the most basic level, it's really a great way to go. If you need to haul pallets, you need to haul equipment, buckets, excavator buckets, skid steer attachments, all those you can throw them onto the flatbed and roll with it. Now, that's where you can start adding some, I'm going to say, upfitting items to your flatbed like I have. Again, this is a very basic setup. I've got a basic tool set there in the Montezuma. What's nice about that better build, that's a 2 section cabinet up there. One is dedicated to the fuel tank, and one is just a cubby area. And what's nice about that is it does give a spot to throw small items in without having to tie them down. The other thing is, of course, depending on the upfitter you choose, which brand you go with, you can get into boxes that are added on. You see a lot of guys that don't have any boxes at all. Maybe they're cattle guys, ranch guys. They don't need a lot of boxes. They just need to be able to haul hay and be able to hook up to their gooseneck trailers. That is one thing nice about a flatbed. I would say it's easier to hook up to a gooseneck. So if you do a lot of gooseneck work, it's a great way to go. This is a really nice setup. I will go ahead and give some details on this. Again, you can have a basic flatbed and you can do a ton with it, but here's some simple add-ons. This right here is a 50-gallon fuel cell. That's a nice setup. This is lockable. I love this better built box for this truck. No, I wouldn't want this box on one of these other 3 trucks necessarily here, but for this, for a little 3/4 ton single wheel truck, this is perfect. 50 gallons of fuel storage. And then you can see I've got a bunch of irrigation junk in there, but it gives you a spot to throw stuff and not worry about it blowing away, rolling off, whatever. Like these are a perfect example. These are what we call spaghetti lines for irrigation systems. Hey, there we go. Put them in here, lock them away. No worrying about them blowing out or rolling off or trying to figure out how to tie them down. Especially with a regular cab. If you're running a regular cab truck, you're already tight on space up front. So if you have a regular cab, actually, I would really recommend putting some sort of box behind your headache rack, because you really do need that storage. And last is very simple tool set that we keep on board this truck for fixing very basic stuff. Now, moving away from your basic flatbed up to a more maybe advanced setup, for lack of a better term. This is a more deluxe or a more advanced setup. We'll start to the back and work our way forward. This bed here I built here about, I don't know, about 5 years ago, and this has now seen 2 different trucks. First was my 2nd gen 01, which is in a lot of my videos, and now the new 04. Lots of time with this bed. I love this bed. I designed it to make it easy to use. I built this box. I don't carry a spare tire. So this box right here, I keep all my straps and my hitches in it. Works really well. I've got lights up underneath that come on when my clearance lights are on, and that goes for all the boxes. All the boxes have lights inside them. Okay, moving around over here, I've got, again, a Montezuma box. You're going to see that redundancy with me with Montezuma. I'm a big fan of Montezuma. Organization. Montezuma really works great for that. All these sockets, everything, all the 1/4 inch sockets, everything stays in place. The only thing that moves around is my little tiny screwdrivers. They like to kind of fall over. Is that a big deal? No. Everything else stays put. Love my Montezuma box. Down below, could use some organization, I'll admit, but I keep my chemicals there to the left. I've got some electric tools, some air tools, level, whatnot. This is a more deluxe setup than standard, as you just saw in the silver truck. And I can fix a lot of stuff. I can fix general repair. I really can cover a lot of ground with this truck, and which is why it's been my go-to for the most part. Moving on over here, I've got my grease guns are ready to go. That's one thing that I've got these where they just drop in. When I built this box, it just makes it easy for getting the grease, because so often I have to grease stuff and just real quick, 4 or 5 grease zerts or whatever. Easy access. Same thing with the gooseneck. Well, easy access. I can just lean forward. I'm tall. I'm 6'4", so that does help me a little bit, but I can just lean in and either hook or unhook. And then I have a 100-gallon fuel tank, and I need every bit of that. That's why I said that the 50-gallon better built setup works great on that other truck, not moving up in the sizes, because we use a lot of fuel, and so, you know, we have big equipment. 100 gallons doesn't go all that far. Got a basic wheelbarrow air compressor with a hose reel. Gotta have a hose reel. If you're not running a hose reel, I just don't know what to say. It's a pain in the butt rolling your hose up all the time. Over here, I keep very basic stuff. I've got jumper cables. I've got all my electrical stuff in here, greasers, fuses, hose clamps, just odds and ends like that. I need that kind of stuff all the time in the field. Down below, hardware. This is both metric and 1/4 inch through 3/8. I won't go further down. That's my 1/2 inch through 3/4. So, you know, pretty basic setup. And last but not least, I've got emergency light bar up on top. Again, if you follow me, you know how much I like light bars, and I like lights in general. But if you're working alongside the road and you are loading equipment, moving heavy equipment down the road that's slow, I can't recommend having a light bar enough. But there you go. So there's a more advanced or more deluxe flatbed almost slash service setup. I can cover a ton of ground with that truck. I can tow goosenecks. The truck isn't overly heavy. I'm going to address that here pretty quick. It's not overly heavy. This truck weighs 9,200 pounds as it sits with no fuel in that auxiliary tank. So, you know, the truck's not too heavy regarding affecting then your gross combined vehicle weight rating. Next up is a new style upfitting bed. This is a North Star SD. These are really popular right now, and they're really popular for good reason, because this is a do everything setup. The biggest thing is these low cabinets. You know, there's no issues with contact with the gooseneck frame or anything, the actual neck. No issues. These are plenty low. Of course, then you got your gooseneck hitch. So this is a great setup if you need something above and beyond an advanced flatbed setup. You can fit a lot of tools, a lot of supplies in one of these beds. Now, this is the weight issue. I will say that though, is this bed is heavy. And then especially then with all the storage space, guess what? It gets even heavier. So that's the issue. This truck right here weighs 11,000 pounds as it sits. So in some ways, I almost wish I would have went. This is a 3,500 chassis cab truck. I kind of wish maybe I would have wound up with a 45. Should have maybe ordered a 4,500. I don't know. I mean, I weigh 5,700 pounds on the rear axle. And it's okay. It's right there, or maybe just a pinch beyond. Hey, you didn't hear me say that. Beyond maybe the factory weight ratings, but that's all right. That's all right. So more details on this bed. The way I have it set up, I added these Montezuma boxes. All my metric tools are on that side. All my supplies are on this side. This is, again, a mirror. This whole setup is a mirror image of the truck you just saw, what I would call an advanced flatbed. This is a mirror image, but better. More deluxe, more equipment. Lots of supplies, all my hardware. My metric, again, 3/8, or through a 1/4 inch through 3/8. I've got my 1/2 inch through 3/4. Again, this is why this truck is heavy, but I get into this stuff all the time in the field. I hate having to leave the field out in a rural area just to find an Ace or a Home Depot or whatever, because I am missing a bolt or whatever. I got everything on board. Now, in here, I keep my jumper cables, I keep my flags. I have a lot of extra space. Extra space is not a bad thing. Again, it gives you places to put things that you don't have to worry about either getting blown out by the wind, rained on, maybe something that's sensitive to sun. I'm loving, after using this is actually, I will say, I've got a lot of extensive hours on these trucks. This is the one with the least amount of use, because this is basically a brand new rig. But I am finding I love having extra unused space. Right now, there's some filters. I don't want them rained on. So there you go, rain sensitive material. Locked away, nice and secure. I keep my grease gun in here. I kind of like my setup over there that I made a little bit better, because I can get the grease gun out fast. And it's just a little bit speedier, I guess. So moving on, I keep my pipe wrenches, my big huge channel locks, my leaf blower, shovels, high lift jack, winch bar, all that kind of stuff is in this drawer. These two little guys, I keep my chemicals. I keep my little 1-inch Honda water pump in here. The other one I've got hitches in, not a big deal over there, hitches and straps. One thing that's cool about this bed that I really like is I keep that cabinet for my coveralls. I have not had an issue. I've driven in the rain. Water has not got in there. They stay dry. So it's really nice having a separate spot for the coveralls. all my SAE stuff, my DeWalt rack down at the bottom, my chemicals, consumable products, gloves, towels, stuff like that up there. And last is, you'll see there's no air. Where's the air? I gotta have air. I got tires to fill, I've got filters to blow out. I gotta have air. And so I kind of went with a little bit different setup. Whoop! Hang with me. There we go. Get the hose out of the way. There it is. There's my air setup. There's my hose reel. Everything's ready to go right there. I've got a little 5.5 CFM at 90 PSI compressor, roll air compressor. For airing up tires and blowing out some filters, it works fine. Running bigger stuff, and I'd be in trouble with that compressor. But if I need big air to run big tools, I'm not bringing this truck anyway. That'll lead into our next one. 80-gallon fuel cell for filling up equipment. Then the last thing here is my emergency light bar. Love that light bar. That's a Speed Tech lights bar. Fantastic bar. If you're looking for a good light bar, there it is right there. And there's the big boy, the top dog, the crane bed. This is quite the rig. I got very lucky scoring this. Long story short, this came from a Caterpillar dealership. They built the truck originally like you do see with John Deere, Peterbilt, Caterpillar, Case. All the big dealerships have these big IMT setups. This is on an F450 frame in the OBS Ford. First off, I would like to apologize for having a Ford in my video, but you know, it is what it is. In order to get the IMT bed and crane setup, I had to get the 4-letter word truck. So, you know, all joking aside though, it's a 7.3 Power Stroke with a ZF5 5-speed. It's all right. It's not a bad truck. For how many miles I put on this rig, it works out well. So back to the IMT Dom. This is an IMT Dom 1 bed. Dom 2 goes on your bigger like class 6 and 7 trucks. The Dominator 1, this has a big crane for this bed. I am so happy about that. Here's a little tidbit on cranes. If you want a crane bed, get the biggest crane you can afford or you can fit on your truck. Here's an example why, and this is nothing. This is nothing. This thing's all the way out to I think 22 feet, and I got a little ATV. I mean, it's nothing picking that thing up. But so many times you get two advantages when you go to the biggest crane you can fit. Both in distance, how far you can reach something, and also, of course, then your weight capacity, how much you can pick up. But the distance, the weight capacity helps. As you get further out, you can still pick up more and more and more, or excuse me, I should say is, yes, less and less and less, but compared to a smaller crane, you can, you know, progressively still pick up more weight further out. So that's a big deal because I do reach far out in weird places on tall stuff to pluck off weird stuff, electric motors. I've used this thing to pull all kinds of stuff. So running around with this setup, we've got the IMT puts the hose reels inside the cabinets. There's the controls. This is an older IMT, so yeah, some of the newer stuff is really trip with wireless controllers, but that's also really expensive. I keep more of like a rollaway shop style. No Montezuma here. Like I said, this is like more of a rollaway style. This is what I've come up with. A lot of guys like to use the drawers. I don't like to use the drawers. So that's what I got going there. Over here is my welding cabinet. I got my torches. That's a big thing, is being able to have torches in the field. 1-inch impact gun, sockets, welding rods, high lift jack. The only thing that's missing, I got my welding helmet in the shop instead of in the truck. Walking around. Pay no attention to this thing. I'm running this on, like, again, on the newer stuff, the newer Dom beds, Dominator beds. You know, they're running twin screw air compressors that are hydraulically driven. That's pretty cool stuff. I don't need that much air. That's pretty wild. So I just got a good old Champion air compressor with a Kohler engine. It makes like 20 CFM or something like that. It's plenty of air for me. Now, my cabinets here, again, you're gonna see a lot of redundancy. We keep stepping up in size. How I've designed these trucks for my use, everything keeps going up in size. So, you know, I've got all my chemicals down here. I've got supplies. I keep random stuff. I've got bearings. So I've got bearings for my equipment. You'll see, here's a random one. Field cultivator, and the big, that stands for big miller. That's a disc that I have. That bearing happens to fit in both wheel bearing sets on those two pieces of implements. You know, I've got caps, bearing caps, P-clips. I've got all kinds of random stuff in here. I've got my pliers, that sort of thing, pipe wrenches, crescent wrenches, bolts, pretty self-explanatory, 1/2 inch through 3/4, 1/4 through 3/8. Again, redundancy throughout my rigs. This is just more supplies. We got lights, we got hydraulic fittings, we got some bearing, some John Deere bearing parts in there. Electrical, again, pretty self-explanatory. Keep my electrical connectors, multimeter, battery tester, blah, blah, blah in there. And then up here, this last one, this is all those, you know, box fitting stuff, fuses, larger fuses, greaser. It's all that stuff that you can pick up different hardware stores. I just keep all that up there. And here, I've got all my DeWalt stuff I keep in there. I've got a puller, I've got screwdrivers, I've got a bunch of random stuff. I've got hex sockets in the back. We're not going to get in real deep on everything that I carry, but yeah. And then the last cabinet here, I've got my air tools, I've got my hammers and punches, I've got C-clamps, that sort of thing, couple odds and random odds and ends, keep my jacks down there. So there you go. There's a run. Oh yeah, we can't forget about the welder. That's the other thing about this rig. See, this is where, you know, this is a dedicated rig. So that's probably the biggest thing I can say is, you know, you're looking at a dedicated setup. There's no gooseneck hitch in this. In fact, let me show you something down here. That hitch, I had to add that hitch. They don't even come from the factory with a hitch on the back. So, and the last thing I have, don't mind my mess. Been on the road actually with this truck and threw a bunch of crap back here. 100-gallon fuel tank, same thing. 100 gallons kind of is the magic number for us being able to carry. So, there it is. This is the big boy setup. So if you turn a lot of wrenches, you got big stuff to work on, no doubt that's the setup to have for big mechanic work right there. Well, you know, now to kind of summarize, as I've taken you through all 4 upfitting rigs of, you know, different degrees of advancement in, you know, both mechanics, towing performance, supply carrying capacity, all those sort of things. You know, where do you lie? Where do you fall in? What fits your needs? You know, the bottom line is, the truth is this big rig right here, that's probably going to fall into the category for the least amount of guys. That is a dedicated rig. No gooseneck, obviously. Very heavy. You're carrying your payload. That truck weighs almost 14,000 pounds. It's almost at the max GVW of that truck with nothing hooked up to it, nothing big set in the bed. So, and I don't pull much around with that truck. Because then, again, that is a dedicated rig for repairs, you know, big maintenance. You know, we got to weld in the field. We've got to pick stuff up. I don't know how many times I've picked stuff up with the crane, welded it back together. Stuff's literally broken half. Badass rig, if that is what you're wanting. It gets terrible fuel mileage because it weighs 14,000 pounds. It's a Ford. So, moving down, the bottom line is these 3 are probably going to fit the bill more so for most guys. Now, again, you know, the 22 Ram, that's a hot setup right now, right? You know, the guys are loving these. You know, CM makes, I think it's the TM. Don't quote me on that. I think it's the TM model. It's very comparable to this. Knapheide makes one that's comparable to this. Badass setup. The only drawback is is the weight that you get on board, and it will affect your gross combined vehicle weight rating going over the scales. So watch out for that. And I would say, if you're really going to load it up like I did, maybe consider going at least a class 4 truck. I can get away with a class 3 because I'm in flatland country, and I'm in rural, but watch out for that one. And again, the other two down there, probably the most common setup for your average farmer, your average construction guy, your rancher, that sort of thing. Great upgrade over a pickup bed. You can do a lot with a pickup bed, and the guys do a lot with a pickup bed, but flatbeds are, in my opinion, for what I do as a farmer, flatbeds are where it's at. Easy to hook up to with a gooseneck. They're strong, they're robust, you can fit more on them, and the other thing is the width. I will throw this last thing in, okay? If you're looking to go to a more advanced flatbed setup like that one right there, okay, dually. Obviously weight carrying capacity. Here's the other thing that's overlooked a lot of the time. Width. Your SRW flatbed is normally 84 inches wide. Your dually bed is 96 inches wide, especially if it's going on to a pickup bed 3500. Now, if you're going chassis cab, it might be somewhere between 90, 92, 94, who knows. But what I like about that bed, with it being 96 inches wide, as you can see, I can fit my air compressor, my fuel tank, and my Montezuma box all the way across, and there's barely a ½ inch left on each side. Can't go that wide on a single wheel bed. Even a 90-inch cabin chassis would be a little bit of a problem. So that is a big selling point for me, being able to have that dually width. Hope you guys have enjoyed this video. This has been a fun one for me. I love this kind of stuff. I hope you do too. I will see you on the next one. And if you haven't, please hit that subscribe button. Let's get that count going. Let's get it rocking and rolling. See you later.